So the first thing that I'm going to do is take a pair of tweezers and carefully pick at any shard of glass that is no longer attached to the display. I'm going to speed through a lot of this because otherwise it'd be a long, boring video, well over an hour. I'll also take a piece of plastic that's fairly rigid and yet flexible enough for me to slide it in between the glass shards and the force touch that goes around the frame of the watch. Using these two methods together, I should be able to, with patience and extreme tediousness, work my way around and under the glass to separate the display from the frame. If I apply too much pressure, or I'm not careful with where I'm putting the plastic or the tweezers, I may end up damaging the display or the digitizer. We'll also go ahead and test it to make sure that it still works. We'll want to test the touch and also observe the display for any defects. The touch can be tested by simply dragging the power off button around the screen from corner to corner. Apple has done something new with the Series 5 40mm. They have put a metal plate over the battery. I'm assuming this is for expansion, seeing as in all of the previous models the batteries have expanded, and seeing as there's less space inside the smaller watch, it would eventually push the screen out, and I believe this metal will give it a year or two longer. The battery may still die quickly, but at least the screen won't pop out. Applying some isopropyl alcohol and using some finer tweezers, I'm able to pick at this sticker and remove it from the back of the screen. Then with a little bit more isopropyl alcohol and tweezers, I can carefully pick at the stickers that are covering each one of these connectors. I try to save these stickers so that in the end I can have a clean finish, but that doesn't mean that they will, in every case, peel back and be pristine once again. They're not that important, but it's just one thing I like to try to do. We'll also want to flip up each one of those connectors and also peel back the copper sticker a little bit. This will help us when we go to install the screen, allowing us to have better access to the connect each one of the flex cables to push it back into the connectors. Now, using the tweezers, I will carefully flip up the latches there, and then very carefully and firmly pull back on all the cables and they will slide out. Now we'll take a piece of tape and I'll put it down on the screen with one of the corners exposed so that I can insert the wire. I've got this set at 83 degrees Celsius. It's fairly hot. And then I'm going to secure this piece of tape on either side so that they don't catch on the wire and help hold the screen down, even though there is already suction. I'm using a 0.04mm wire. I'll carefully insert it at the corner. I've been using a technique that I've perfected. I will carefully move the wire around the screen. It's important and imperative that you understand how much give and take you can have on each one of these wires. And then I also position the heat plate to accommodate the ways that I'm pulling on either side of the wire, whether or not I'm pulling with my right hand or my left hand, and I'm able to guide the wire around because I don't want to damage the display or the digitizer in the process. And the wire being so thin, it is necessary first to cut through, but also can cut through those layers and ruin the display if not done properly. There's the glass, all off. We still have a little bit of adhesive, and down there in that corner, we will still have a little bit of glass that we need to pick off. Carefully rubbing with my thumb, I should be able to roll the adhesive off. And being careful to make sure that the adhesive doesn't have little shards of glass in it, I can wipe it away with a clean room wipe and a little bit of acetone. And on this piece of adhesive down at the bottom, there are a few shards of glass, so I want to make sure I'm extra careful because I don't want to scratch the digitizer, because that can affect the touch functionality of this display, and we would have to replace the digitizer on this watch, and I don't like to have to do that, so when possible I'll avoid it. And it's a good thing to have a little bit of nail here, to have a little longer nails than I'd normally like to have, but it helps me pick at things that I otherwise couldn't grab. And this situation is probably going to call for me to use my tweezers. As long as I'm careful and don't scratch the digitizer and carefully pick at just the shards of glass, I should be able to successfully remove that last piece of adhesive without damaging anything. The trick is patience. When it comes to these repairs, having patience and attention to detail, understanding the limits that these displays have when it comes to the different tensions that you can apply to them. We'll clean it with a little bit of acetone, make it nice and pretty again. You can see we're all good, no scratches, nothing like that. I'll go ahead and I'll stick that down on this little stand that I have. These are wax stands. They're fairly pliable. They are slightly sticky so that the display doesn't shift around a lot. Wipe off any fingerprints. We're going to apply a little bit of our Loka. The Loka is liquid optical clear adhesive. That's what's going to allow us to adhere the glass to this display. Then I'll take our new piece of glass and I'm going to carefully clean it to make sure that we don't have any dust. It's hard to tell whether or not the dust on this glass is on the top or the bottom, so I like to clean both sides thoroughly, and I do that again using acetone with a clean room wipe. Now this next part is where I have to be careful because I want to set the screen down extremely slowly, and if you're wondering if the video is paused, it is not. It is me simply being extremely careful and approaching it at a very slow pace. I want to watch the Loka only touch the glass in one spot and then it will spread. And if I do it correctly, I won't have any bubbles entrapped in the Loka and therefore under the glass. And getting those bubbles out is a pain. Typically means I have to lift the glass again and do it all over again. There we go, finally. I was careful enough to do it without getting any bubbles, and you'll be able to see that the Loka has kind of pancaked out. Wiggling around the glass and getting it to settle in will allow the glass to align with the display. And later we'll make sure it's dead center, that it's aligned on all corners and sides. And while we let that naturally sit into place, I'm going to carefully clean up the Force Touch, all of the old adhesive and last glasses of shards of glass. It's almost to the corners, but not quite there. I'm going to help it along by giving it a little pressure in each corner, and we'll allow that adhesive to move towards each corner. You can see if I push down just gently, just barely. I don't want to push down too hard, otherwise we'll get the Loka to squeeze out and it'll end up on the back of the display and then it becomes a sticky mess. As you can see, it's still clean on the back. Alright, I'll turn my light back on. We're also going to apply a little bit of a UV light to this so that we can solidify it. So here I am under my microscope, just watching those bubbles go out as I push on them gently. Some are a little bit more stubborn than others and like to come back, so pushing on them a couple times will help. Once I've gotten the bubbles out, I'll apply a direct UV light. And what I'll do here is, while I am applying the light, I have a certain amount of time before the Loka starts to cure and it'll become harder and harder to move the display. And so as I adjust it from corner to corner, and if I see any bubbles pushing them out, I should be able to align the display perfectly with the edge of the glass, therefore making it look perfect when we're done. After enough time under this light, I know that it's not going to move any. We're going to put it under a different light that I have. This light I use when I'm doing larger batches. You can see there's a couple in there I'm already doing. But we'll go ahead and set this in there and let it cook under that light for an hour or so. We'll also rotate it now. Now we're all done. We'll go ahead and clean it. It was a quick hour, I'll tell you what. Clean up the edges, just in case. Although this one was really clean. Then we'll move to connecting the display. Now, had I not pulled back the copper, this would be a little bit more difficult. And you can see in some of my other videos, clear my hands a little in the way here, but I'm able to push the connectors in using these little wings that the flex cables have. And then I'll click down all the connectors, and we'll go ahead and test it and turn it on for the first time since putting the glass on. There we go. Got the Apple logo. And of course, when it comes on, we're going to test for the touch. We'll be doing that again by sliding the power button around each corner. There we go. Perfect. Now that we know that it works, we're going to go ahead and push the copper sticker back down and peel off those little stickers and put them back over the connectors. The best of our abilities, making it look as pretty as possible. And I apologize again for my hand being in the way there. Next, I'm going to use some of this adhesive. I've explained in other videos why I like this adhesive. Basically, in a gist, it's the best adhesive I've found to create the best seal on this watch. We'll line up the antenna there, which is really the only difference visually from the Series 4 and 5 screen on the back. Clamp it down, and then we'll go ahead and clean up the edge with a little bit of acetone. Any of the spill out that we had there.
So there you have it, how to repair the Apple Watch Series 5 40mm glass only. If you are in need of a repair, you can send it into our depot. There will be a link in the description as to how to do that. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.